It is really disappointing to see voice actors come forward and not only say absolutely ridiculous things that are inevitably going to upset people, but to basically attack their own colleagues' careers by saying things like, oh, people with a certain skin color shouldn't voice act in anime. That statement instantly causes division between people, and they know it. Now, Funimation can't seem to stay out of the news because things that they say seem to upset people. Things their voice actors do and say upset consumers. I mean, controversies keep rolling in with them. And here is another one that a lot of people, rightfully so, are upset about. Trio of Funimation Asian American voice actors take issue with white actors in anime while boasting that voice acting affords the freedom to play outside of how your body looks. This is just a little bit hypocritical. It says a trio of Asian American voice actors currently employed by Funimation recently shared their frustrations with white voice actors, primarily celebrities, acting in or voicing both live action and animated anime productions, whilst simultaneously boasting of the freedom their profession allows them to play outside of how their body looks. In a May 25th piece headlined, Asian American voice actors question why white A-list stars are still voicing anime, several different voice actors talk about their self-declared commitment to furthering discussions about the role of Asians and Asian Americans in voiceover roles. I think that it's fine to discuss these things, but to say, oh, unless you're this gender, ethnicity, class, you can't play the role for something like voiceovers isn't okay. But it says, on the topic of entering the industry, Lo recalled how during her Chinese American upbringing, I really wanted to go into film, but my parents were like, you're not pretty enough because of beauty standards. It says there are some ideas about who should be a leading character, or what fits the mold of certain levels of intelligence when you're on stage, added Gon, himself an individual of Filipino descent. However, the Japanese-American Yu spoke positively to how voice acting allows a respective voice actor to completely embody a different character, noting when it comes to voiceover, I play a lot of blondes, a lot more than I would have expected starting out. I think that yes, it's great when people can have the freedom to play a role outside of how they look in real life, but these voice actors here are saying in parts of this interview that what you look like does affect the role you should get. It continues on with saying Gon then told Lopez, Eastern culture hyper-lifts Western culture, but guess what? They're the ones doing the voices on their end. A claim which the IndieWire reporter explained was rooted in the idea that while Japan and China are stereotyping the US, they're still allowing Asian actors to voice the characters, which Gon believes should be continued here, where the US has a rich diversity of performers. I think that people should be hired based on their ability to play a role properly and their talents, not based on, in this case, if they're white, not based on their ethnicity. Look at the voice actor for Apu. He quit voice acting the character after 30 whole years because he was being accused of reinforcing racial stereotypes. I do not think the actor should have been attacked for it because clearly he could voice the role well. He loved his character. He was passionate about the show he was on. He loved being part of The Simpsons. He wasn't going on social media saying racist things. He wasn't, saying racist things with his character. He simply was doing the job he was hired for, and he was good at it. It says this is a confusing bit of logic that appears to go against the very argument put forth by Gon, for if Asian voice actors are allowed to and praised for their ability to voice US stereotypes due to the location of their production, then the logic follows that white voice actors in a predominantly white country dubbing Asian characters should be considered completely innocuous, if not outright celebrated. It says the trio then turned to the topic of mainstream Hollywood productions utilizing A-list stars to voice their characters even in dubbed versions of anime features, with Yu observing that as far as we can tell it's not moving any more product, adding that no one went to go see Ponyo because Miley Cyrus's little sister Noah Cyrus was in it. And at this point in the interview, Yu then made one of the most baffling assertions of the entire piece, telling Lopez on the subject of representation in anime acting, I'm not mad if Scarlett Johansson plays the Major in Ghost in the Shell, as long as I get a fair shot at playing Black Widow. We are talking about very different things. This argument is really flawed. It's a false equivalent because we're talking about voice acting versus a live action film, and the article does even point that out, saying the issue preventing you from appearing on screen as Black Widow is not any form of racism, but rather the simple fact that acting and voice acting require two separate and distinct, albeit related, skill sets. They are very different. We're talking about two different things here, but that's the comparison that they're trying to make. I sense a hint of jealousy here because I feel like I'm listening to voice actors who are not as well known trying to pull a race card to get parts that were given to A-list celebrities. So, of course, offering no examples, but claiming that much of the anime being done today takes place during specific eras in Japanese history, and thus the voice actors should reflect that, they said that this belief was based upon Japanese history and the things that are ingrained in that culture. The more that character in the story is about a certain culture or certain lived experience, the more I would really like the actor to have some familiarity and have lived in those spaces, they said. How are they going to reflect that? None of the people who lived during those times are alive today. I live in the United States today. That doesn't mean that I can claim to have any grasp or understanding of the Revolutionary War era in the United States. I have no better or less understanding of it than anyone of any other culture because none of us lived during that time. We all are getting our knowledge from the same places: books, movies, history. I do not understand this argument. Again, Scandinavian mythology, Norse mythology is huge in anime, so does that mean that no Asian voice actor should be able to voice those characters like Odin or Thor? Of course not. Of course Asian voice actors should be able to act those parts, especially when the dialogue is in Japanese. There are just so many different flawed arguments here. I understand in some of these arguments where they're trying to lead it, but they don't do it in the right way at all. It says, unfortunately for you, not only would this proposed standard prevent her from starring in anime series based upon Western cultures, such as Attack on Titan, or something like Full Metal Alchemist, but it would also work counterproductively against her own goals. This is filled with hypocrisy because another stance they're taking is when they're talking about people being familiar with the space that the anime is referencing, referring to things like Japanese culture or different eras in history. They're not even from places like Japan or China, they're Asian Americans. Imagine how much smaller the talent pool would be if studios fired everybody and restarted only hiring Asians. We shouldn't want that. No one should. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way. But I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.